What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about why Norway does not join the European Union. So, from what I understand, there are a lot of benefits to being a part of the EU. Like there's free trade with all the other European countries, and it's a lot easier to work and travel and live in all of the other European countries that are a part of the EU. And there's a lot of other reasons as well, and a lot of other things that the EU does. But, on the other hand, Norway has been a very, very successful country. So, I assume you guys know what you're doing by choosing not to be part of the European Union. And today, I just want to understand why this is. Why does Norway refuse to join the EU? So, let's take a look.
When someone says the EU, many first think of Europe, but this isn't entirely accurate. The European Union has only 27 member states, and even though some
Right.
European countries have long, rich histories with their EU cousins, they've decided to remain outside of the Union.
Right. So, most Americans, we don't really understand that much about the European Union. Obviously, we are not a part of it. And Americans, in general, we don't really know much about the rest of the world anyway. So, I don't know everything about the European Union, but it's not all of Europe. There are countries that are not part of it, and Norway is one of those countries.
This is the case of Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland. But why are these three countries so closely linked to a shared European identity, not part of the EU?
Yeah.
As always, let's take a look at where these three countries are located on a map.
Okay.
First up is Norway. This Nordic nation sits right at the top of the Scandinavian peninsula, with direct access to the North Sea, the Arctic Circle, and the mouth of the Baltic Sea.
Right.
Norway borders with two EU members, Finland and Sweden. Second is Iceland. Iceland is by far the most isolated of the European nations,
Yeah.
with many mapmakers sadly forgetting to include it in their sketches of the continent.
Oh my God.
The closest EU neighbor is Ireland, over 1,400 kilometers away. Last but not least is Switzerland. This is the country that many forget isn't part of the EU, as it
Yeah.
sits right at the heart of the continent and is surrounded by central EU states.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even realize that there were a couple of European countries that are not part of the EU. Because for Americans, maybe we're a bit ignorant about this, but when I hear EU, I think of Europe. And Switzerland and Iceland and, of course, Norway are all part of Europe. So it's like, why are you holding out?
France, Germany, Italy, and Austria all share a border with this alpine haven. Let's take a look at each one's relationship with the Union and why they've decided not to join.
Okay.
Norway has made attempts to join the EU on two notable occasions. Initially, the country applied to what was then called the European Economic Community.
Whoa, hold on. Wait a minute. Norway has tried to join the EU? Is that what they said? Norway's tried to join it, but I'm confused. Do you have to be accepted into the EU? Or so did Norway try to join? Wait, what?
To join. Norway has made attempts to join the EU on two notable occasions.
Really?
Initially, the country applied to what was then called the European Economic Community
Okay.
in 1962. However, when France, under President Charles de Gaulle, vetoed the UK's application to join the EEC in 1963 and 1967, Norway's bid was indirectly affected. Since Norway's application was contingent on UK membership, along with the applications of Denmark and Ireland, Norway decided to suspend its application both times.
Wow. So if they had just accepted the United Kingdom and these other countries into the EU, or whatever the EU was back, in the past, Norway, you guys would have been part of the European Union, maybe still to this day, if they had just accepted all these countries back then. So that's a whole different timeline that could have happened, but didn't. I didn't know Norway tried to join, but then you guys basically took back your application and said, never mind.
Eventually, negotiations successfully concluded in 1972, leading to a referendum where the Norwegian people voted against joining.
What? Oh my god. Okay. So I didn't know any of this stuff. Based on the title of the video, it says, Norway refuses to join the EU. I thought Norway has just always not wanted to be a part of it, but you guys actually had applications to join it that fell through, and you actually voted. Norway actually had a vote on whether you wanted to join, and the people of Norway decided no. So why? I just want to know why. That's the question I have.
A subsequent referendum in 1994 also saw Norwegians voting against EU membership, albeit by a closer margin.
Wow.
Since then, Norway has not actively pursued full membership. Several factors contribute to Norway's hesitation to join the EU.
Here we go. So Norway voted on this twice, and twice most Norwegians didn't want to join, and this is why.
The big problem is fish. Norway places significant emphasis on maintaining control over its fisheries sector, which is a vital part of its economy. If Norway were to join the EU, it would have to follow the EU's common fisheries policy. This policy would allow other EU countries to fish in Norwegian waters.
What? Of course, I'm just laughing because it's like, of course, the answer is fish. I know Norway does a lot of fishing. You guys eat a lot of fish, right? You guys are known for salmon, Norwegian salmon. Norway is kind of known for fish. So it's like, it's just funny to me. It's like, this is a very serious topic. It's very serious. And it's like, why hasn't Norway joined the EU? Fish. It's because of fish. But it's not a joke. It's serious. It has to do with fishing policies and trade. And joining the EU would allow other EU countries to use Norway's water and fish in Norwegian territory? Is that right?
If Norway were to join the EU, it would have to follow the EU's common fisheries policy. This policy would allow other EU countries to fish in Norwegian waters, albeit with strict rules.
Why?
Additionally, Norway would be subject to the EU's total allowable catches system, designed for sustainable management of fish stocks, which might differ from Norway's preferred management practices.
Now it's starting to make sense to me why Norway doesn't want to be part of the European Union. When you join the European Union, you get a lot of benefits, but you become subject to the policies and the laws of the EU, and you have to abide by their policies. And a lot of these policies sound like it would hurt Norwegians. It would hurt the Norwegian economy. Fishing, you have to share your fishing. You have to impose a limits on how much you can fish. Those are decisions that Norway should be able to decide as a country. So, honestly, I actually totally understand now. I totally understand. It's like, why would you join this group that's just going to hurt your country in certain ways and impose regulations on your country? That doesn't sound good.
There are also economic concerns beyond fisheries. Norway's vast natural resources, especially oil and gas, play a pivotal role in its economy.
Yeah.
Some Norwegians are concerned that EU membership might impact the country's autonomy over these resources.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this makes so much sense. It's nothing really against the EU countries. It's nothing personal. It's just like joining the EU imposes a ton of regulations and that onto Norway. about your fishing and your oil and your economy. And it's like, why would you do that?
Then there's national sovereignty. Many Norwegians are cautious about ceding aspects of their sovereignty to Brussels and the broader administrative structure. So what about Iceland?
Wait, what?
Sovereignty to Brussels and the broader administrative structure.
National sovereignty. This is Norway's sort of independence. And right now, Norway, you have your own government and you decide what Norway decides what it does and its policies and its budgets. And I guess when you join the European Union, you're no longer just your own country. You have to consider what the European Union wants. And you have to consider changing some of your policies or your decision making based on the EU. So, knowing that now, it makes complete sense to me why Norwegians have voted not to do this.
But what about now? What agreements do these countries have with the EU in the modern day?
Yeah.
None of these three countries are technically part of the EU, but they're
Right.
closely tied in various ways.
Okay.
All three countries are part of the Schengen area, facilitating passport-free travel across borders. However,
Oh.
this doesn't automatically grant the right to work. Additional permissions might be required.
So, if you're part of the European Union, some of the benefits are that you can travel throughout the European Union, all the countries, and you don't need a passport. You can work, you can live in the different countries, work there, travel. It's all very free and open. So Norway kind of has an agreement with to have passport-free travel. So that's really interesting. I didn't even know countries did that. Here in the United States, if you want to visit America, you need a passport. And I always thought, no matter what country, if I wanted to visit anywhere else in the world, I need a passport. Most Americans don't even have a passport because most of us don't ever travel outside of the United States, which probably isn't a good thing. We don't really get a lot of exposure to other countries, but we do feel very far away from, the rest of the world. And America is so big. You could spend your whole life traveling, trying to travel throughout all the American states, really. So I didn't know passports, like that there were countries like in the EU that were just open. And hey, Norway is not even in the EU, and you guys allow passport-free travel with the EU. So you have some deals with the EU, kind of. Okay.
Both Iceland and Norway are members of the European Economic Area, which allows them to participate in the single market. This means they have to contribute to the EU budget, adopt certain EU laws without having direct representation in the European Parliament,
What?
and are exempt from some EU policies.
What? What is this? Wait a minute. What is this? So, Norway, you're not part of the EU, but you've arranged to have, I don't know, a relationship with the EU. Norway does do some things with the EU. You have certain policies. Well, actually, it says Norway is exempt from most EU policies, but you get the benefits of the trade and the travel. Norway has to contribute to the EU budget. You have to pay the EU, even though you're not in it. That's interesting.
All three, along with Liechtenstein, are members of the European Free Trade Association, also called EFTA.
EFTA. European Free Trade Association. These are like countries in Europe that are not part of the EU, but still want to do some things with the EU. So you made this EFTA thing. I didn't know this existed.
Founded in 1960 as an alternative to the then European Economic Community, which later evolved into the EU, the
Okay.
EFTA aimed to promote free trade and economic integration. The
Okay.
original members included Denmark, Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, Austria, the UK, and later Portugal joined the fold.
Oh, wow.
Today, only 4 members remain: Switzerland, Norway, Liechtenstein, and Iceland.
So basically, this is just for the countries who never joined the EU, are still a part of this.
EFTA promotes free trade among its members and with other countries, and its
Okay.
members cooperate closely with the EU, ensuring smooth trade and collaboration across Europe.
Cool. Okay.
So the big question is, which one of these three countries is most likely to join the European Union? We don't believe any of these three countries will join the EU anytime soon.
Okay.
But we know for sure that Switzerland isn't keen on the idea at all.
Okay.
Public opinion on joining is incredibly low, and the country's dedication to neutrality is simply too fierce.
Yeah, I've heard. I don't know much about Switzerland, but the one thing I do know is it's really, really committed to being neutral. That's kind of its thing. So it makes sense that they don't want to be part of anything, really. That's really interesting, actually. Basically, Norway, you guys have arranged it so you get a lot of the benefits of the EU without any of the drawbacks of being a part of the EU. You guys have really finagled this, or you've really arranged this in a really clever kind of way.
It would take a string of massive geopolitical events to sway the Swiss people over to a pro-EU side. Overall, Iceland is probably the most likely to join of the three. As it's
Okay.
already part of the EEA, it has close ties to the EU, and a decisive referendum on joining has never been held. The 2009 recession also showed the Icelandic people the value the EU economic union offered, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine has many looking to their European neighbors for solidarity.
Iceland has never even voted on this. Norway has voted on this twice. So it seems like Norwegians have kind of made up their mind about this.
Still, we see no big reason for any of these countries to join at the moment.
Okay.
They all enjoy close relations with the EU, take part in many of its agreements, and contribute in their own way to the European project.
Wow.
The European Union has bigger fish to fry, and these three are already strong allies as it stands.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Should these countries join the EU, or should they rather stay outside of the EU? Let us know your thoughts in
All right, that sounds like that's the end of the video. It doesn't sound like Norway is going to join. Why would you? Because now I know Norway gets a lot of the benefits of being a partner with the EU. You have a close relationship with the EU. Everybody likes Norway, and Norway gets all these benefits, but Norway, you still get to maintain your autonomy and your independence and your own policies, and you're not subject to the EU in as many ways as EU members are, but you get a lot of the benefits. So, that sounds like the perfect situation to be in. I thought there must be a good explanation for this, why Norway has not joined the EU, and now it makes total sense to me. That's really interesting. I had no idea about any of this, so I really got a lot out of this. I enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. If you're Norwegian, it'd be fun to hear your opinion on joining the EU, or why you think Norway should not join, or what you think about the EU. That'd be cool to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and learning about Norwegian culture and seeing Norwegian things I have never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.